Okay, that's pretty much it for our mad ramblings. Time now for those interviews. Ali spoke to Zack Snyder on his Todd, and then you were joined by Helen for David S. Goyer, correct?
Indeed.
Enjoy.
If you haven't seen the film by now,
please do.
I just don't even know what to talk to you about. No, I'm talking if it's in the future. Yeah, exactly.
No.
Like, don't spoil it. But don't spoil it. Really?
There were many, many little grace notes I enjoyed in the film, and of course the film is much more than grace notes, but there were a few that just put a big geeky smile on my face. And obviously there were the LexCorp stuff that we had on the side of the truck and on the gas tank and the buildings. And by the way, I love the joke where when Superman slams into the 106 days since an accident, it goes to 0 when he comes down. All of that stuff.
I'm glad you saw that, by the way. I always, whenever I watch the movie, I see that and I'm like, is anyone seeing this? Because I think it's funny. No? Okay. maybe on a second viewing or whatever.
But these are the more obvious ones. The other ones that kind of have crept into my mind as I'm falling to sleep, I go, hang on, is that one? We saw Utopia Casino, a big sign for that. And I looked that up, and that's Tony Gallo, right?
That's funny, yeah. Well, yeah, and that's DJ, my visual effects supervisor. He snuck that in there, and I was like, that's awesome.
Blaze Comics, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And is this all your visual effects supervisor who's just kind of...
It's a bit of that. But it's all stuff that we talk about, and we go, oh, that's fun. We should do that. Like there's definitely a really subtle inside the we call it laser eye head, which is where they're battling with where Zod's tearing the building apart with his laser vision, heat vision, laser vision, whatever you want to call it. We call it heat vision, but it's more than that. And there is a B common called Batman on the wall in there, just really small. You might have to like even stop the movie to see it, but it's definitely in there.
That's Blu-ray stuff.
Yeah, and that's basically that's also DNEG, who worked on DNEG is the visual effects company here in London that worked on all the Dark Knight movies. And they definitely, they did that. Yeah, they thought and I was like, that's awesome.
And obviously the bit where I just went, oh, I was like, hats off, was obviously the satellite. We only catch it on 2 run pass.
Yeah.
And it's just the symbol, and you can kind of see it.
It says Wayne. It does say Wayne underneath, but it's just you can see half the word. Yeah. Well, for me, that was a couple things. I really just wanted to say in this DC universe, and whether or not it's the Wayne Enterprises of Chris Nolan's movies, or whether it's the Wayne Enterprises of DC in general, that's also yet to be seen. But that particular reference was there for me to say also to Chris, like, thanks, for helping me out with this. And, you're awesome and cool guy. And I just want to say that I appreciate it. Right. But it also means for me that, Batman's out there somewhere.
Yeah, there is a Batman.
There is a Batman, and he's out in the world somewhere. Yeah.
You have the polar bear. It made it into a Superman movie. Yeah. John Peters got his wish.
Unfortunately, there was no battle, but yeah, it was funny because I had drawn that when I was drawing the storyboards. I was laughing to myself, and I drew a whole drawing. We did a dolly shot originally. We didn't shoot it, but I had drawn it as this like dolly move where we're like with a polar bear, and he's lumbering across the ice flows, and he finally he jumps a couple, and then he leaps one, and it proved to be a lot more difficult to photograph than I had imagined. And I definitely did not want to do a CG polar bear, right? Yeah. I said, no way, it's got to be a real polar bear. And so that footage is IMAX footage that we got from this IMAX documentary about the polar regions. And then we talked to them and they let us use it. They spent like 6 months on a Russian icebreaker looking for polar bears, and we just weren't going to do it. I mean, it would have been. We had it worked out that we were going to bring the polar bear, we're going to put all these ice floes on stage and shoot him on stage with a green screen behind him. And we were training him physically to leap.
You were training a polar bear?
Yeah, to jump from ice floe to ice floe. And but also it's super dangerous to film. I'm like, there's only one guy who has a polar bear in Canada. And
I think I've seen the video of that guy.
Yeah. And he was like, you can't. As we talked about it, it got more and more dodgy. Like, he's like, okay. It sounded really easy at first. He was like, oh yeah, you just put him over there and jump in. And then he's like, okay, but no one can be in the room. and you have to put these electric things around everybody because he won't murder everyone. And I was like, oh, okay, so wait a minute, is this fellow really trained? Is it like dangerous? He's like, oh no, it's not dangerous. I mean, unless of course he sees you or sees something shiny or a flash of light or something. I'm like, that's easily on films like that happens all the time. He goes, yeah. So I mean, there is a chance he could maul us all, and I was like, okay, well maybe this is not what we should be doing anyway. So then we found the footage, so it was okay.
And it all worked out. And then you got the logo of the, is it Arctic Cargo?
Yeah, Arctic Cargo, yeah.
Yeah, I thought I spotted that. I went, oh, there it is. But then you gave me the actual bear. The other thing, the huge thing for me, that kind of, oh, wow moment is seeing Clark get into the lift at the end, push the glasses up his nose. Was that something you really worked really hard on to get just right?
Get the timing just right, yeah. I really just wanted you to just get a glimpse of it because really in the end of the movie is the beginning, right? Because he's just at the Daily Planet, has become the Superman that we know. It's
almost Clark Kent origins.
It is. That's really a nice way of putting it because for me, that's what it was all about. It was like and we could have started this movie with that scene. Like you literally could start a movie with him getting off his bike and getting on an elevator, putting these glasses and coming up and having, Perry White go, guys, this is our new stringer, Clark Kent, and having Lois say, welcome to the planet. And
what
then
a line.
The movie could start, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great line. And that was in the first draft of the script I read.
So originally the first draft had a kind of flashback type thing or...
Yeah, it did, actually. It did. It actually had more of it, even on Krypton. There was like the structure of Krypton was crazy. And we kind of linearized that because it was like the birth and then it was like all these flashbacks within flashbacks and the timing of Zod's approach. And there was there was a bigger battle that I had designed on the landing platform, and we shot some of it, but it got, for budgetary reasons, we made it smaller and smaller, and then it got to the point where I was like, let's just have the battle inside. Because he has this robot who's like, Kelex and Keylor, and there was a scene where Kelex dons a artificial body that is like a robotic body, and they battle out on the landing platform. And we'd actually had Zod had these like this pack of sort of genetically engineered sort of like war dogs that like leaped off and like ran ahead, and Kelex and he were fighting the war dogs, and finally Kelex like takes these like detonation like explosives out of his robotic body, arms them, and says like he turns to Jor-El and says like, get the kid off, basically. I'm gonna try and hold him off, and then he just runs and dives in one of those drop ships and blows himself up, and that makes like Zod really mad because Zod's still circling, and then he lands, and then Zod goes in and they fight. So
I gather there were hidden symbols and meanings to, this is what David S. Goyer was telling me, to the walls and the encryptions of the Kryptonian language, and you really went to town on the language.
Yeah, there was a great, one of my favorite quotes is this Joseph Campbell quote that says, and it's basically on the walls inside of there, there's a bunch of like, the sort of classic Superman poetry about like, I am the son of Ra and blah, 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 all the kind of classic, where he talks about, the different moons and all that stuff. And then there's this Joseph Campbellian thing that I love where he says like, which I felt like was really appropriate to Superman, where he says, where I thought to find an abomination, I found a god. Where I thought to slay another, I slay myself. Where I thought to travel outward, I travel to the center of my own existence. And where I thought to be alone, I shall be with all the world, right? That's this, like, Joseph Campbell says it about, sort of the hero's journey, whatever. And I always thought it was super appropriate for Superman because it's really like, that's his whole story in a nutshell. And so we put that's also in Kryptonian on the walls inside the...
Right, so you have a scene where Superman kills a man. Not in cold blood, obviously. Can you tell me the thought process to deliver that? Because that was an incredible moment.
Yeah, I guess for me, and I, in the original version of the script, he just got zapped into the Phantom Zone. David and I had long talks about it, and Chris and I talked long about it, and I was like, I really feel like we should kill Zod, and I really feel like Superman should kill him. And the why of it was, for me, I go, if it's truly an origin story, his aversion to killing is unexplained. It's just in his DNA, and I felt like we needed him to do something, just like him putting on the glasses or going to the Daily Planet, or any of the other things that you're sort of seeing for the first time that you realize will then become sort of his thing. I felt like if we could find a way of making it impossible for him, like, you know, Kobayashi Maru, totally no way out. Sorry about the dorkiness there.
You were in good company.
I felt like that could also make you go, okay, this is the why of him not killing ever again, right? Like he's basically obliterated his entire people and his culture, and he is responsible for it. And he's just like, I can't. How could I kill ever again? Even though Zod says to him, like, look, there's no way this ends without, like, what are you going to do? Put me in jail? Like, I don't know what you're going to do with me, but I'm going to just keep doing this until you stop me.
I'm engineered.
Yeah, like I'm just a killing machine, and that's what I'm going to do now. And especially now, when I've got, like, I had a task before, which was to rebuild Krypton, but you've robbed me of that task. Like the task is gone. There's no chance of the task. So now what am I going to do? All I am is a killing machine. So I'm going to start doing that. And I just felt like it was. We were able to create like this. I wanted to create this scenario where you really, Superman, either he's going to see those people get chopped in half, or he's got to do what he's got to do. And I think Zod knows that. It's like, it's almost like, you know,
Suicide in its way.
In a way, it is. It's like death by cop, you know, in a way. It's like I think he knows, like, there's no, if I think in my mind, it's like if Cal has the ability to kill him, then that's a noble way for him to die. It's like that whole, like, a good death is its own reward sort of concept in the movie. And I think that for me was, you know, and it also, I think, and if there were more adventures for Superman to go on, you then are also given this thing where you don't know 100% what he's going to do. Like, I think that when you really put in stone the concept that he won't kill, and it's totally in stone, it really erases an option in the viewer's mind. Now, I think that doesn't mean that he doesn't now have a code that he's like, okay, I just can't do that. This has got to be outside of my existence. I got to find another way if that's how it is. But again, you'll always have in the back of your mind this little thing of like, well, like how far can you push him, right? Like, is it going to, like if he sees Lois get hurt, or if he sees something like, or his mother get killed or something, like, you just made like a really mad Superman that we know is capable of some really horrible stuff if he wants to be.
My thoughts after seeing it was, he's only human. And then I went, nope, he is not.
Yeah, but that's the thing that's cool about him, I think, in some ways. The idea that he has the frailties of a human, sort of emotionally, but you don't want to get that guy mad because, you know.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's been
so fun.
Very, very, very fascinating. Here's to next time around.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks, Zach.
Cheers.
Cheers.